All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to this afternoon of day 2 of the Future Conflict and Disruptive Technology Symposium. We've had some amazing and wonderful discussions earlier this morning, starting off with just looking at general R&D and the science and technology efforts that are happening at the Department of Defense level, thanks to Dr. Wax. Moved into AI, or should I say machine learning. I'm no longer going to say AI, it's been banned from my vocabulary. It was very dynamic and interesting conversation there. And then also a really wonderful quantum panel discussion as well. Just a quick reminder of a couple key things. Continue to silence cell phones. And remember, we are doing live streaming and recording of the events for today. We are working at a unclassified level throughout all of our briefings and efforts today, and that we will not be calling the room to attention for our speakers in order to maintain a symposium and conference-like environment. Without further ado then, I'd like to turn it over to Lieutenant Colonel Darnell, who's going to be introducing our next speaker. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for being with us, and as we reconvene for the afternoon of day 2. So we have a very special guest today. So myself, I'm an intelligence officer in the Air Force, and I think any conversation is not complete without a very complete and full discussion of intel. And so Colonel Ariel Batungbacal, who's the commander of the National Air and Space Intelligence Center, was very gracious to come and see us today. Spent about 45 minutes with us before she gets back to Dayton, Ohio, and back to her very busy wing. So she's joined today by also, I'll mention Chief Master Sergeant Carlos Labrador, the Command Chief from NASIC. So thank you to you both for being here. Colonel Ariel Batungbacal is the commander of National Air and Space Intelligence Center, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio. She's responsible for operating the $2.1 billion center with its 4 groups, 4 directorates, and 16 squadrons. Managing an annual budget of more than $507 million, she leads nearly 3,500 personnel, providing a broad range of integrated, tailored assessments, products, and services to joint operational forces, national policymakers, and acquisition community. Colonel Batungbacal earned her commission from the University of Maryland at College Park. As a career intel officer, her assignments have spanned the tactical, operational, and strategic levels. In 2012, she was appointed the White House Fellow and placed within the Secretary of Labor. She worked with the White House, Department of Veterans Affairs, and the Department of Defense to establish the U.S. Department of Labor's first ever Women Veterans Employment Program. Colonel Batungbacal deployed in support of contingency operations to include Iraqi Freedom, Enduring Freedom, Freedom Sentinel, and Inherent Resolve. Prior to assuming her current position, Colonel Batungbacal was the commander, Air and Cyberspace Intelligence Group, National Air and Space Intelligence Center, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio. In this role, she managed an annual budget of $59.1 million and led 6 squadrons and 562 personnel in the production of original intelligence assessments of foreign air systems, electronics, directed energy, integrated air defense, and cyberspace systems. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Colonel Ariel Batungbacal.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Clearly, I'm a little shorter than Colonel Darnell. I'll try it again. Good afternoon. All right. So, first of all, thank you for having me. I couldn't be more excited to be here. I've actually never been on the Academy campus, so it was quite the awesome sight to see everyone just in the dining hall. So, thank you for hosting us. Thank you for hosting my team, Chief Labrador, Mr. Jed Cohen, Captain McCullers is running around somewhere. My CAG chief, also an alum. So she's very excited and tells me where she's been staying and does the things and where she was commissioned. So I am Ariel Batungbacal, Commander of the National Air and Space Intelligence Center. Has anyone ever heard of NASIC? Okay, all right, a couple of you, that's good. So know it now because you're gonna need it when you come in the Air Force, okay? We are based out of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. I'd first want to say yesterday, Colonel Swaim laid before us the goals of the symposium. So from understanding the real world and its complexity, to encouraging you to feel a bit shaken, unsettled about our competition, to charging you to leave with a sense of inquiry and curiosity. Your challenge for the symposium and moving forward is to be curious and to think deeply, not just to seek answers, but to first redefine your generation's questions. Dayton's the birthplace of aviation. The National Air and Space Intel Center, or NASIC, is very much connected to that history. Dayton has a 150-year history of creativity, innovation, and invention. It's built on strength of connection, collaboration, cross-pollination of ideas. It's hard not to get through a day without encountering something that began here, whether it's cash registers, literally, electric car starters, which has been very helpful in the temperatures here, and thanks to the Wright brothers, airplanes. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with NASIC, we're the Air Force's premier service intelligence center, as well as an operational wing. We're also a field operating agency that reports directly to the headquarters Air Force with over 3,500 personnel. Within that 3,500 personnel, you think about 80 different specialties. So material scientists, acquisitions professionals, data scientists, intel analysts, computer scientists, aerospace engineers, graphic designers. I mean, it goes on and on. It's really impressive. Also, I'd be remiss, 14 Fs, information operations, because that's also what Captain McCullers is. We provide foundational scientific and technical intelligence on a multitude of threats to include air, space, missiles, and cyber. The intelligence we produce originates in Dayton, but it's sought out and used around the globe every single day by leaders ranging from tactical operators to the highest levels of government. Today, you, your families, our neighbors, we all have a pacing challenge to our nation. As many senior leaders within the DoD have highlighted, we recognize the United States dominance is no longer guaranteed. At this year's AFA, the Secretary of the Air Force highlighted his focus areas as first, the mission. Our pacing challenge is China, China, China. As we reach the end of our longest conflict, General Brown was in the Pacific when he observed a graver threat is manifesting where the risk and stakes are high. So this morning, you've heard from the NORAD Northcom J2, also from the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering, our DoD Chief of Digital and AI, and industry on how we're thinking about AI, quantum computing, hypersonics, and more. This afternoon's panels, you'll get to dive deeper into quantum sciences and hypersonics. So now I'd have to, of course, say, similar to Major General Wright, my job as an intel officer makes it a little difficult in this forum to go too deep, but I want to give you a baseline to begin to understand the application of these disruptive technologies and the strategic context. Our competitors are working diligently to achieve sensor fusion for their weapon systems. Sensor fusion allows adversaries to leverage a system of systems with built-in redundancies and enhanced performance. This will improve their targeting capabilities. Individual threats cannot be viewed anymore as single threat platforms. And we just had a great experience, great tour of the multi-domain lab, right? That's awesome, by the way. I wish I had that at any point in my career, quite frankly. But what I hope you take from that experience, as all of you get a chance to hopefully cycle through that, is everything is connected, right? You don't, coming up, it was, if I hit that SAM, if I took down that IADS, I'm good. Like, free territory. Let's go fly, fight, and win. Let's schwack them, we're done. Now let's go home and have dinner with our families. Like, that's not where we're at. So it's good you're learning that now and you're learning that here. Emerging network-centric warfare capabilities threaten operations in all domains. So in the past, we've viewed each threat as an individual kill chain to counter. Now with these built-in redundancies and the multitude of military capabilities integrated across multi-domains, no longer should we be talking about a kill web or a kill chain, we should be talking kill web, right? So a kill web is made up of multiple kill chains. These integrated kill webs enable faster, more effective, and more precise weapon employment, and we must be prepared. So as a NASIC commander, my perspective is threat-based. So I want to highlight a couple of areas of concern based on the recent DoD 2022 report to Congress titled Military and Security Developments Involving the People's Republic of China. This is not to impart a sense of doom and gloom, right? So General Wright talked about, this moral courage we have to be able to be prepared as intel professionals to be able to give bad news, right? And so that's what we do. But what we don't do though is, it's not about creating this impression that our adversary or competitors are 10 feet tall, right? If we give you the sense of what we're talking about, and then also give you a sense for where are there opportunities, okay? So, but you need to know what we're talking about before you can start thinking about opportunities. And I hope that in your studies, you start asking, okay, where are the opportunities? So if this is, if you're looking at a particular technology, where are the opportunities to create time and space for decision and action? So we want to emphasize this sense of urgency, but we have to work, but we must have, as we work together, create and sustain advantage. So first, China maintains one of the largest military forces in the world. Anyone surprised? Right. With over 2.2 million active duty members, defense budget of 261 billion, which was a 6.8% raise from last year's defense budget. China's priorities include modernizing the PLA's training with realistic simulation, virtual reality, enhancing the military strategic capabilities, accelerating improvements in logistics capabilities, and investing in defense science and technology. China is the largest aviation force in the Indo-Pacific region. Again, anyone surprised? They have over 2,800 total aircraft, not including trainer variants or unmanned vehicles. Their aviation force includes 2,200 combat aircraft, fighters, strategic bombers, tactical bombers, multi-mission tactical and attack aircraft. Among these aircraft, China has operationally fielded its new J-20 fifth generation fighter to include a new two-seater variant. While the J-20 features high maneuverability, stealth characteristics, and integrated electronic warfare suite, the PLAF is preparing for upgrades. These upgrades will include increasing the number of air-to-air missiles that can be carried in its low observable configuration, adding super cruise capabilities, and installing thrust vectoring engine nozzles. These ambitious capabilities will enable China's longer range anti-access aerial denial counter-air operations. Another development in the air domain is the airborne leg of China's nuclear triad. In 2019, the People's Liberation Army Air Force publicly revealed the H-6N as its first nuclear-capable air refuelable bomber. By October of 2020, the H-6N bomber was observed carrying an air-launched ballistic missile and has now been operationally fielded. Additionally, the PLAF is seeking to extend its power projection capability with development of the new H-20 stealth strategic bomber. Official PRC media highlighted this new bomber and that it will be capable of carrying out nuclear and conventional attack missions. Additionally, hypersonic weapons come in many forms, as we've discussed in the last 2 days. The combination of their high speed, unpredictability, and maneuverability creates diverse long-range strike options that are difficult targets for missile defense systems. Our adversaries are committing substantial effort towards achieving their hypersonic weapon goals. The PLAF recently debuted its new Y-9 comms jamming electronic countermeasures aircraft, designed to disrupt the adversary's battle space awareness at long ranges. This new tanker variant improves their ability to operate beyond the first island chain from bases in mainland China. China is also rapidly producing and delivering the KJ-500, which is their most advanced airborne early warning and control aircraft. These aircraft extend the range of their integrated air defense system networks and amplify their ability to detect, track, and target threats in various conditions. This is all great news, isn't it? Yeah, so give you a little bit more here. We've seen China hit several key milestones in their comprehensive UAS modernization efforts. The PLAF also possesses one of the largest forces of advanced long-range SAM systems in the world. They acquired the SA-21 SAM system from Russia to improve their strategic long-range air defenses. Furthermore, they're also developing an indigenous air and missile defense capability. And they will likely have a ballistic missile defense capability as well. To round off their multi-tiered missile defense, China's developing a kinetic kill vehicle technology to field a mid-course interceptor, and have already conducted a test of the land-based interceptor in February of 2021. So all of these capabilities I shared are just the tip of an ever-growing iceberg of a large economy, a whole of government effort to modernize. These evolving capabilities and concepts continue to strengthen the PRC's ability to fight and win wars against a strong enemy, project global power, and counter an intervention by a third party in conflict along their periphery. So the question we must ask ourselves is why? Why is China developing new technology at such an accelerated space? And why should we care? The 2022 National Defense Strategy outlines The PRC presents the most consequential and systemic challenge to US national security and the free and open international order. We're seeing advanced capabilities within the Chinese air, space, and missile forces, and how they could pose challenges to our forces should a conflict occur. There have been numerous open source reports on China's increased aggression in the Indo-Pacific, their recent and continued incursions in Taiwan's air defense identification zone. Taiwan's defense minister recently expressed concern that China could mount a full-scale invasion of Taiwan as early as 2025. But will Beijing be content with only taking over Taiwan? Is that really their goal? And while the PRC seeks to achieve the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation by 2049, Beijing has ambition to reform the prevailing international rule-based system. Have any of y'all talked in your classes about the international rule-based system? Yes, excellent. The PRC views the US as deploying a whole of government effort meant to contain their rise to power. So let's just pause there, right? So I remember when I was at National War College a few years ago, we were in one of our World War II classes, and the professor takes us out and he says, hey, I'm gonna test this, yep, oh, this works. So he takes us out, he said, hey, let's go for a walk. And we go outside into one of the main hallways, and there's this big old school painting, right? Some of those that are very similar to what you have around your campus. And he says, what do you see up there? And we're like, I don't know, bunch of guys signing paper, right? And we're like, what are we doing out here, right? And he said, who is missing? And so what it was a painting of several of the most powerful nations in the world during World War II signing an agreement. It really kind of laid out a lot of the basis for the international world order. But who's missing? China wasn't there. So from the PRC's perspective, right? Think about it. Everyone's at the table. They're all agreeing to a negotiation, right? When you think about who are the most powerful, incredible civilizations that have contributed to mankind, right? Who are we thinking about? And someone throw someone out. Great Britain, okay. Rome, who else? Persia, who else? China is one of them. China has an incredibly long and deep history, right? So you think about this. We have been around, right? If you're the PRC, we have been around for centuries, much longer than you guys that are sitting at the table. We have a culture that is very specific and is rich. We've contributed to literature. We've contributed to culinary arts. We've contributed to art. We've contributed to world history, right? We've helped shape this whole side of the planet. And we're not even at the table. Think about that, right? So the painting, he said, you wonder why these guys are upset, right? And right, there's some additional amplifying factors, right, that I think we can all put together. But I think that if you really want to step back and understand where their minds are at, it really stems back from who set up the international world order, right? And why do I have to set up and go by the rules that you guys have set up that you haven't even invited me to the table for, right? So within the 2022 National Defense Strategy, it lists that the outlines of the PRC is our most consequential systemic challenge to US national security and to the free and open international order. So these advancing capabilities, air, space, missile, cyber, how could they pose challenges to our forces should a conflict occur? And there have been numerous reports about this, right? So they characterize their view of strategic competition in terms of rivalry among powerful nation states and a clash of opposing ideological systems. Our Air Force Chief of Staff, General Brown, stated the world is changing. If we fail to adapt, we risk losing. We risk losing in great power competition. We risk losing in a high-end fight. For every single one of us, we need to accelerate our understanding of our competitors. So this is our call to action. So when General Wright said to arrive with seriousness upon graduation, this is what he's referring to, because we have a job to do, right? So if you could go, oh, I got the slide. I have the slide clicker. There we go. So when you look at the strategic competition with China, there's some things that from an intelligence community that we're looking at, and I would also argue also the blue community, State Department, et cetera, we're all looking at. So when we look at what is the strategic context, right? So 2020, you've got some border disputes, you have Hong Kong's national security laws passed, new goal set for 2027, the PLAs accelerate modernization. So they're in an acceleration right now. The CCP's 100-year anniversary, we just hit. The end of President Xi's second term, which she was reelected, right? So US presidential election, also the Taiwan presidential election. You've got the PLA's 100-year anniversary and the end of President Xi's third term. And we've got 2030 goal for PLA to complete modernization 2035, right? And then the PRC's 100-year anniversary is 2049. Because again, China's history doesn't begin and end with the PRC's establishment, CCP, right? So the CCP perceives risk increasing in the late 2020s into the 2030s, right? So deteriorating economic demographic outlook, right? We just saw there were some articles that were published right in the last week, I think, about just the astonishment of the lack of births within China, aging population. When you think about how does that affect supply chain issues, right? When's the last time majority of the things other than probably the things that are in here, right? You know, you go home or whatever you order from Amazon, it's coming from China because they have the workforce, right? But now they're concerned about a shrinking workforce. Taiwan, their population is trending more in favor of independence, right? So that's counter to their preference and hope. Taiwan's military could benefit from major reforms, but also trends show that we have a commitment to Taiwan and those allies. So you think about where the CCP, where the People's Republic of China, where their heads at, right? So you have this long history and this perspective of their strategic context and their and the way they look at the world. And then also you see, right, end of President Xi's term, right? You've got modernization, you have some other things that are very exciting for them as far as modernization, their anniversaries. And then also you have a very real concern, right, an aging population. Any questions about this? All right. So we need to, in order to fully understand them, we need to understand their goals and vision. So a couple of key differences between the free and sovereign nations that the US supports and the hierarchical system that China desires. Overall, those differences can be summed up with the term sinicization. For those of you where that's a new term, that's the process of the Han ethnic majority encroaching cultural and political superiority over their minority and surrounding populations. So oftentimes when people think about the Chinese, they think about the Han people, right? That's the majority. There's actually like hundreds or thousands of minority populations, right? We hear most often about the minorities when we talk about like the Uyghurs and the encampments and imprisonments that happen with them. So this is not new and it's been traced back really about 3,000 years. So China's disregard of the international rules-based order shows their intent on the global stage. And the CCP and the PRC seek to supersede the US-led order in favor on their own, in which their will, as the Middle Kingdom, may be enforced on what they consider to be inferior nations. In fact, they use this rhetoric in the course of relations with other nations. Have any of you studied the Belt and Road Initiative? Love it, yes. Does anyone think that it's just an economic plan? Good. It makes for good brochures, right? Like, look at this great plan we have for you. We'll come build it for you. So they use this rhetoric when they talk about they're referring to the regional partners. China has spent the bulk of the last 50 years coercing international partners into deferring to Beijing as a seat of legitimate Chinese power as a prerequisite to conducting trade and granting access to their cheap labor. So the PLA believes that they've achieved their 2020 modernization goal and have now set their sights on their 2027 goal, which is accelerate the integrated development of intelligentization, which is a problem when you try to make an English word that's based off a Chinese word that doesn't really work so well. Mechanization and informatization of the PRC's armed forces. This is a major concern for us. as their ability to develop their forces in this manner would give them more credible military tool to wield for pursuit of a Taiwan just unification. So the bottom line is China's military forces